If you was a Nintendo fan during the Wii U and the 3DS and also the Wii era, you might remember something called Nintendo Selects. These were re-releases of full Nintendo games that usually were full price, and they were re-releases for around $19.99, $14.99. They were absolutely amazing. But in this video, we're going to be discussing the Nintendo Selects line and why they haven't come over to the Nintendo Switch. Before we get into this video, make sure you are hitting that subscribe button and also liking. We've recently just hit 2,000 subs, so thank you to everybody for your support. So back in 1996, Nintendo started doing something called the Player's Choice line. Now, I think this was only in Europe and also North America, but what these were games that were re-released for the Super Nintendo, for the Game Boy, for the N64, also for the GameCube. And these were games that were re-released that were sold over a certain amount of copies. When they sold really well, when a game sold really well and they were really popular, Nintendo would re-release them from their initial price of $49.99 and release them down to $19.99. So these were like Player's Choice. It was a way of giving the really popular games a cheaper price cut so more people could play them. Starting in 2011, Nintendo brought this back. They brought it back from the Player's Choice and they renamed it to Nintendo Selects. They started doing this for Wii games. They're doing things like Zelda and Pikmin and Wii Sports. Actually got a physical release this way, but they did loads of Wii games. Basically, the big popular mainline Nintendo first-party Wii games were re-released under the Nintendo Selects branding, and these were $19.99, which was an absolute amazing price. We're considering here these games were $49.99 when they were released. These were Wii games in 2011, 2012, 2013, that kind of thing. These games used to be full price, and Nintendo games don't really get sales. Even back in the Wii, the Wii U and the 3DS era, it was very rare for a Nintendo first party release to go on sale. They've never really done that. Obviously with the Switch we're used to paying $49.99 pretty much always, apart from a eShop sale where it'll eventually go down to maybe $39. But yeah, Nintendo never really lower their prices, so it was great to see the Nintendo are doing the Player's Choice and also Nintendo Selects. Now, some fans didn't like this because they did have a change in their cover art. They did have a big banner on the top saying Player's Choice, and in the US, I believe, they are like yellow, and some people didn't really like that in their collection, so most collectors prefer to get the original copies. But with Nintendo Selects, they actually have like a red border, and then the actual cover art is kind of cropped within that. It's a weird sort of design, but considering you're saving £30 on an actual game, getting it cheaper, that obviously, for some, that would obviously mean worthwhile. I mean, I would take a worse cover art if I was saving that much on a game. The cover art to me is something that you only see when you have the game off your shelf, and we're saving so much money. Obviously, I would prefer to have the original copy, but if I'm saving that much money, it would be something that I'd be, completely fine with. I think that would be perfectly okay. But yeah, Nintendo used to do this a lot. They released a lot of games under this branding, and it was great to see. It was a good way of getting Nintendo games to more people who didn't want to pay full price, or was maybe more of a casual Nintendo fan. Not every Nintendo fan wants to pay £50 for a brand new release on launch. I know a lot of us do, some of us don't. And these games, being reduced was a great way of getting them to more fans. But in this video, we're going to be asking the question, where are Nintendo Selects for the Nintendo Switch? Obviously the Switch is 8 years old now. It's the longest running Nintendo console of all time. And I think it is time that we finally get these Nintendo Selects being brought over to the Switch. Obviously when the Wii was relevant, when the 3DS was relevant, when the Wii U was relevant, these Selects were brought out near the end of the life cycle. I get that, that's fine. But, we're at that point of the Switch life cycle. I would have thought we would have seen Nintendo Selects come over to the Nintendo Switch in maybe 2022, 2021, and it just never really happened. It's been really weird. Now, the Selects obviously sold very well. It's a great way of giving, games to fans. But I think it'd be good, to get some older Switch games reprinted under the Selects branding, or maybe even rebrand the Player's Choice or the Selects for the Switch, call it a different name. But I'm talking games like ARMS, games like maybe Pokken Tournament, Kirby Star Allies, these older games, the original Hyrule Warriors, games that aren't really in demand anymore because they have either sequels or other games, or they're just not that relevant anymore. Nintendo could bring these games back. They could bring them back as an older release, maybe $25.99 or $29.99, maybe a little bit more, than their original £50 value, because things like ARMS, Kirby Star Allies, Donkey Kong, Hyrule Warriors, just those early Switch games. I'm thinking things like the original Super Mario Party or Yoshi's Crafted World, that kind of thing. These games are still £50 on the eShop, which is absolutely insane. And £50, if you can find an original new copy of it, there's still £50 in the shop. And considering these games came out in 2017, 2018, 2019, almost 8 years ago at this point, if we're talking 2017 titles, it's time for a reduce in price by now, surely. I mean, I completely understand some games. I think it would be weird for Breath of the Wild to go down to that price, or Mario Odyssey, or something like the Pokemon games. I don't see them lowering the price on those games. I feel like it'd be great for those games to sell even more copies. But yeah, I feel like some of the older, sort of smaller releases, still great releases, still great games. I think Kirby Star Allies is a great game. I think Mario Tennis Aces is a great game. Astral Chain maybe. Just some Nintendo published titles that they came out so long ago, and I think some of them are actually out of print. You can't actually buy some of the older Switch games unless you want to get them second hand. So it would be great to see some Nintendo Selects be brought back for the Switch. Now, the Switch has sold over 100 million units. It's on track to overtake the PlayStation 2 and be the best-selling console of all time. That is an amazing fact. Nobody thought that was going to happen back in the Wii U era. I was a Nintendo fan during that last year of the Wii U. Nobody thought that the Switch was going to do as well as it did. We thought it was going to do okay, but we never thought it would do this well. But Nintendo is at that final push now. That final push to make the Switch the best-selling console of all time. It is possible. Let's make a scenario. Let's say somebody's in a shop and they see the new Nintendo Switch Selects. These games are $19.99. They're games like ARMS. They're games like Mario Tennis. They're games like Kirby Star Allies. And let's say they're a parent and they're buying a console for their kid, and it's Christmas time, and they see a Switch Lite that's obviously the cheaper Switch, and they see games as low as $19.99 as opposed to $49.99 that they currently are. I feel like that would maybe just push some people to make an impulse purchase like that. It makes the Switch seem more appealing. Some big games, $19.99, reduce that final push that could sell a couple million more units and maybe push the Switch to just make a couple million more sales and be the greatest console of all time. Well, it is the greatest console of all time in my opinion. The greatest selling console of all time. I feel like it's possible if Nintendo do that. But, we're in this era of the Switch where pretty much every game has been full price. The only real mainline, I want to say first party, but it's kind of not really first party game to be reduced heavily, is Mario & Rabbids, but that was published by Ubisoft. We're in this era of the Switch where games are full price. We've been paying for Wii U ports at full price. Every game has been £50. Nothing has gone down in sales, but Nintendo are seeing fantastic sales numbers from that. We're seeing games be sold in the millions, the tens of millions. People are buying these games at £50, so it would be weird from a business standpoint for Nintendo to lower the prices, but I get it. People are still buying Mario Kart. It would be kind of stupid to lower the price on Mario Kart 8 at this point to $29.99 or $19.99 when it's still selling. I'm talking things like Kirby Star Allies. Who is buying Kirby Star Allies from 2017? Who is buying Pokken Tournament? Just to get a few more sales on some older titles, I really think would help Nintendo. But Nintendo have kind of been really stubborn this generation, but I guess it's kind of worked out for them. They don't need to lower the prices of Switch games. They don't need to. They don't need to lower the price of the Switch. They don't need to lower the price of Switch games. Games still sell. They were charging, $60 for Zelda, and everybody was fine with that, and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom sold incredibly well. So, yeah, Nintendo doesn't need to do this. I think that's why we haven't seen Nintendo Selects. Back in the Wii U era, the Wii U, and Nintendo as a whole really, was struggling. So, I see why they wanted to do the Selects. That pushed hardware and software sales, I get that. But Nintendo needed that at that time. At the minute, they're doing really well. Every game is basically selling at least 1 million copies. All the games that have been brought out have done really well. Nintendo is in a very successful place. They don't need to lower the price of their games. But we're at the end of the life cycle. I feel like it is time to see some kind of Nintendo Selects for the Nintendo Switch. And if the Switch 2 is, backwards compatible, let's say the Switch 2 is essentially a Switch Pro, and it's, it plays Nintendo Switch games, but the Switch 2 also plays only Switch 2 games, that would be great as well. Let's say we have a Switch 2 out, yeah, and it's backwards compatible with older Switch games. But then Nintendo released Nintendo Selects for Nintendo Switch and released some of the older the Switch 1 games, re-released them so that, you know, people that had a Switch 1 could get some cheap games, but people who just bought a Switch 2 could have some games in their back catalogue to play. I feel like that would be a really good scenario, and I feel like we could see Nintendo Selects come after the Switch 2, if the Switch 2 is backwards compatible. I don't know, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, everybody. Will you be buying some Nintendo Selects for Nintendo Switch? Do you miss Nintendo Selects? Have you bought any for the Wii U, the 3DS, the Wii? Have you bought Player's Choice for the SNES, you know, Game Boy, the N64, the GameCube? Let me know your thoughts on these budget titles, or these budget re-releases. Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, everybody. Will you buy these? Do you think it could happen? When do you think it could happen? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll see you in another video. Cheers for watching, everybody.